Greetings, my soul tribe. I hope I find all of you well and amazing today. I wanted to take some time to talk about 7 lessons I learned when forgiving myself. So forgiving myself and practicing forgiveness was one of the hardest but most rewarding things I've ever done. So I thought it might be useful to share the ways in which I learned to forgive myself. So first and foremost, I realized that when it comes to forgiveness, right, and judgment, many people will say, oh, when you do not forgive someone else, it's like you drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. What I realized was that when you are not forgiving yourself, it's even worse because you're actually drinking the poison and parts of you die. And then you feel like you've lost yourself or numb or not alive, not living your full purposeful life. So that's why it's really important to practice and work on forgiving yourself, even for the smallest of things. So the first thing is that I had to realize that forgiveness was critical to my life, but by not forgiving myself, it was not serving me. It was bringing down my vibration and my frequency every day, and it would show up over and over again in different ways in my life, different experiences, different patterns. So my vibration was so low or lower than it could be and should be. So I realized that, wow, this is no longer serving me. So there must be a window of opportunity here for me to really step into this idea of forgiveness. I had never really thought about forgiving myself. So it was kind of like the aha moment and understanding that it's needed, it's necessary, and if my vibe is high, everything else in my life will be more abundant. So the second thing is that I had to get really, really honest with myself about what I wasn't forgiving or what I may have felt like I judged myself for, whether if it was being a kid and a child and making mistakes, whether if it was traumatic events that had happened to you or to myself in this case. So yeah, I had to get really, really clear and honest that there were things that I needed to forgive myself for. And sometimes we can be living in denial, right? And just not accepting the fact that it may seem silly, you may not have given yourself permission to even feel or acknowledge that judgment of yourself, but it's needed and necessary. And the third thing is that I had to then explore what I needed to forgive specifically. I had to take the time to write down 20 to 30 things in my life, in my entire life, that I may still have been critical of myself. Now, I'm a Virgo, and I'm a perfectionist, so I've struggled with that all my life. And often the root of that is you may not feel worthy or enough, right? So really, I just had to explore my life from childhood until now and get very specific about what I had not forgiven myself for. And I think 2 huge and major root issues that I had was, one, when I was younger, I had to leave my sisters. And I was only probably 8 years old, maybe younger. And my father had stolen my sisters and I, kidnapped us from daycare and from my mom, and it was a huge traumatic event, but I ended up having to run away from my father and grandmother's house because I couldn't take it anymore. And I had to leave my sisters behind. And I had always been like their mother as well as my mom's mother. I'm just a mothering person. So I had to run away. I jumped out the window, I got on a bike, and I had to leave them. And I ended up running away. I got with my mother, I stayed with my mother, and it was years later before my sisters were able to live with my mom. And then I was older and I had to leave my mom's house and move with my aunt in my teens, and because it was just very dysfunctional. And so I had to leave my little sister. And what I had realized is I had judged myself and had not forgiven myself for leaving them. and everything that I have done, even in my adult life, was rooted in not stepping into my power and not stepping into my light because I felt like I was abandoning them. And I felt like when I judged myself and I had not forgiven myself for leaving them, even though I was only a little kid myself, I always felt like I disappointed them or left them, and was afraid then to leave them as an adult because I felt like I was abandoning them again in some negative experiences that happened to my sisters that in my mind I felt maybe I could have prevented had I made a different decision or choice. So I had to realize that that was one of the things that I had not forgiven myself and that I really needed to heal. The other thing was that for those of you who have experienced sexual trauma, I had experienced sexual trauma when I was 11 years old, and I was raped, and I had felt so much guilt and shame. I couldn't even talk about this, right? That's how much healing I've done. But I couldn't even talk about this because I had felt guilt and shame, like I should have fought harder, I should have tried to get out of that room, I should have been stronger, not put myself in that position. So there were so many things that I had to forgive myself for. And that was one of them, believe it or not. And yes, I know what you're going to say. Wow, you were 11, you couldn't have stopped it. But I know that now. But what I had felt inside was this judgment and lack of forgiveness for that experience. So I really had to dig deep and get really honest with what I needed to forgive. And those were two huge things for me that I had to forgive even myself for. So what I did was I did go through some therapy. I encourage everyone to experience that. And what I learned was to treat myself or talk to myself like that childlike person. So even if you felt like you're judging yourself or can't forgive yourself for things you did as an adult, still look at yourself and talk to yourself and say, what would I say to the 5-year-old Brandy? What would I say to the 11-year-old Brandy? What would I say to the 8 or 9-year-old Brandy? Even if you're a grown person, right? And that shifted everything for me. And what I was able to tell myself and practice that new lens of forgiveness was by talking to myself in that way, with love, with compassion, with understanding, that I did the best I could with what I could at that time. And for most people, that's what we don't realize. Even our parents, it's like we don't realize they did the best they could with what they could at that time, with the information that they specifically had. So for me, that childlike understanding or talking to myself as a child was a huge factor in me being able to forgive myself. And my world is lighter and freer because I've worked on this forgiveness for myself. And I know if I can, that you can too. The fifth thing was that I had to allow myself to feel it. I know most people will say, oh, you got to feel it to heal it. But the truth in that is so freaking powerful. You have to give yourself permission to feel the pain, to feel the hurt, to feel the loss. That is the only way you will be able to heal it. So I strongly encourage you, allow yourself the grace to feel and heal it. Okay? Feel it to heal it. And 6, I had to really work on getting to the root. I was intentional and purposeful about finding ways, finding things that could work on helping me heal. For me, that was stepping into energy healing, getting energy and healings and receiving them, learning to become an energy healer, though intuitively I've always had some of those gifts since I was young, but this really helped me step into that. And also coaching as a professional coach. The best coaches in the world also have coaches. So working through that with a coach, right? The difference between a therapist and a therapist is you're working on the past and you're rooted in history. Where a coach is like, where are you today and where are we trying to go? Doesn't mean we negate the past, but it's literally, where are we today and where are we trying to go? And that was powerful for me. So that combination of energy healing, and I've probably received a good maybe 50, maybe even 75 energy healings, as well as given hundreds, right? So that practice of working on healing myself really helped me get to the root and release those energetic cords, those energetic ties, that deep-rooted pain within me in which I house that lack of forgiveness. So I strongly encourage you to find what resonates with you, find what works with you, whether if it's meditation, whether if it's daily mantras, whether if it's energy healing or Reiki or therapy or running or jogging or whatever works. Heal the root. Explore within you, because when you master yourself, you can master everything else around you. And 7, and last but not least, it sounds very simple, but I used to practice a daily mantra. Once I was stepping into this notion of forgiveness, I really just needed this constant reminder, but I also needed to stamp this new mindset, this new energetic frequency in the world and in my world every day. So in essence, I would say I am worthy of unconditional love, and I am perfectly imperfect. I am worthy of unconditional love, and I am forgiven, now and always. So for you, you can also use that daily mantra every day and stamp it for yourself. Stamp it and continue to practice it until, when they say you fake it till you make it, it's kind of like that. You affirm it until you really believe it. Because you are worthy of unconditional love. You are perfectly imperfect. And you are forgiven. So, those are my 7 ways I've learned to forgive myself. I hope that you can take something away today and step into forgiving yourself, because you deserve it. I love you unconditionally, and I hope you have a beautiful, amazing, and abundant day. My amazing soul tribe, sending you so much love and light. Let me know if you have any other questions or any other ways I can support you. Have a blessed day.